Вітаємо всіх ще раз. Ми ж розпочали трансляцію і також будемо розпочинати запис. Нагадаю, що у нас є ви можете обирати канал, який вам зручніше слухати українською мовою або англійською мовою. Внизу на панелі, на робочій панелі в Zoom у вас є опція, такий значок глобусу. Ви обираєте український канал або англійський. Якщо, наприклад, ви хочете задати питання англійською мовою, то ви також можете переключатися на англійський канал і, відповідно, також говорити англійською мовою. А я хочу, як завжди, розпочати з невеличкого вступу і сказати декілька слів про Education USA і про наш проект взагалі. Я нагадаю, що Education USA – це мережа департаменту США, яка надає повну, точну, загальну, актуальну інформацію про можливості навчання в США. І кожен охочий може безкоштовно отримати таку інформацію, записатися на консультацію або користуватися ресурсами центру. Якщо ви хочете дізнатися про процес вступу до коледжу або університету США, вимоги щодо тестувань, фінансування освіти в США, гранти або різні стипендії, то ви можете підписатися на нашу розсилку або користуватися соціальними мережами Education USA Ukraine. На екрані є посилання або назви сторінок в Інстаграмі, Фейсбуці, також Ютуб-канал і наша пошта. Тому, якщо у вас є якісь питання, будь ласка, контактуйте з нами, і ми з радістю вам допоможемо. І сьогодні наш 5-й вебінар в рамках проєкту «Освіта у воєнний та післявоєнний час». Дякую, що ви приєднуєтесь, дякую за ваш час, за вашу зацікавленість. Нагадаю, що цикл вебінарів складається з 10 зустрічей з експертами, які є представниками закладів освіти США і психологами. На цих зустрічах ми зустрічаємося щовівторка о 5:00 за Києвом. І якщо ви помітили, то тепер ви отримаєте лише одне повідомлення від нас з нагадуванням і з усіма посиланнями. Я думаю, що так, сподіваємося, що так для вас зручніше. Якщо, наприклад, ви не отримали якесь повідомлення, лінк для зустрічі залишається той самий, просто збережіть веб-сайт і можете користуватися всіма матеріалами. Сьогодні у нас новий експерт, доцент, психологиня Дарлін Хантер, яка представляє Університет Х'юстона, і вона поділиться своїми порадами і своєю експертною думкою щодо того, як допомогти впоратися з травмою. Нагадаю також ще раз, що всі посилання будуть доступні на сайті Education USA «Освіта у воєнний та післявоєнний час». Тут є інформація про попередні вебінари і також оновлюється інформація про наступні. Наразі на цьому сайті, я поділюсь посиланням в чаті, вже доступна презентація, тобто слайди вебінару українською мовою і англійською мовою. Англійською мовою будуть транслюватися на екрані. Якщо вам зручно користуватися ще й українською версією, то ви можете переглянути їх за цим посиланням. Я поділюсь зараз цим в чаті. Ну і, звичайно, що якщо у вас будуть якісь питання або технічні проблеми, будь ласка, пишіть нам про це, і ми спробуємо допомогти вам з цим впоратися. І я хочу передати слово нашій сьогоднішній експертці Дарлін.
Good morning. Well, I guess it's good evening to you. I've just had my breakfast and I imagine you're getting ready for your dinner. Thank you for delaying that in order to visit with me today. I've long wanted to help you guys, and this is about the only way I could figure to do it. So I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you today. My background, I started as a teacher in the classroom, and then after about 10 years, went to counseling the students at all levels, elementary through high school, and then shifted into more community work, working with clinics and hospitals, and then I went into crisis work, responding to crisis here in the US and helping people not only survive but thrive after trauma. So I've worn a lot of different hats, and I'm glad to be able to share with you today. I'm going to be talking about helping children of Ukraine cope with the trauma of war. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is taking a psychological toll on the children of Ukraine and could have long-term consequences for them. Your work with these children will help to mitigate those consequences. You, as teachers and parents, have the power to protect the children and help them cope with the trauma of war. Ukraine is a highly collective culture, which is a huge asset in saving the children. I will first share with you the effects of war on children at different developmental levels, and then I will talk about how to mitigate those effects. I'm guessing that I may have a variety of levels of teachers in the audience, elementary, middle school, high school, and I'm sure that many of you are also parents. So the things we talk about today will apply both to the children in the classroom and the children in your home. Let's look at slide 2. Trauma facts for educators. Trauma can impact school performance overall, and it can impair learning. You may see a lower grade point average, probably a higher rate of school absences, which prevents the children from having the opportunity to learn in your classroom. You may see an increased dropout rate. There may be more suspensions and expulsions. When traumatized children act out, they may be sent home. There could be a decreased reading ability. One single exposure to a traumatic event may cause jumpiness, intrusive thoughts, interrupted sleep and nightmares, anger and moodiness, and or social withdrawal. Any of these things can interfere with concentration and memory. It'll be more difficult for children to concentrate when they're in the classroom, and it'll make it more difficult for them to remember what you've taught them. Chronic exposure to traumatic events like the Ukrainian children are experiencing, especially during a child's early years, can affect cognitive functioning long-term. Let's look at slide 3. The effects of trauma on cognitive functioning can be either temporary or long-term. Trauma adversely affects attention, concentration, memory, and cognition. Trauma reduces a child's ability to focus, to organize, and to process information. Trauma interferes with effective problem solving and or planning. Trauma produces inconsistent academic performance. They may be doing well one day or in the morning, and in the afternoon, the effects of trauma floods them again, and they are having more difficulty in the afternoon. Slide 4, please. Traumatized children may experience physical and emotional distress. We will see in traumatized children overwhelming feelings of frustration and anxiety. We will see poor control of emotions. They may over or underreact to certain noises, things like bells or physical contact, door slamming, sirens, lightning, or sudden movements. Sometimes you'll see the opposite of underreacting, because they'll either overreact or underreact, almost feeling numb in order to protect them from the trauma. Children may have intense reactions to reminders of their traumatic event. They may seem okay, and then a reminder triggers the reactions, triggers the emotional reaction. And they also may have physical symptoms like headaches and stomach aches. These are real aches and pains. They are caused by trauma, but their stomach really hurts and they really have a headache. So we do have to validate and address the pain they're feeling, and then also address the underlying feelings that's causing the physical symptoms. Slide 5. Behavioral acting out can create management difficulties. Children who are normally very compliant, behaved very well, may start acting out. Those who are already acting out make it even more difficult to handle. You may see unpredictable and impulsive behavior. Children may think others are violating their personal space and overreact to being jostled or pushed. When the kids are lined up, moving from room to room, and somebody bumps another student, the student that was bumped may overreact and be really angry and aggressive to being crowded, something normally that they would just kind of ignore. The child may blow up when being corrected or told what to do by an authority figure. Children who are normally compliant may become resistant to normal directions, things that they've been told to do over and over, and they've done those things, and then all of a sudden they don't want to do them and they resist. They often may create fights when they're criticized or teased by others. Some children are super sensitive to teasing anyway, so they may fight, or they could do the opposite of withdraw. Routine feels safe to these kiddos. Change feels very scary. So they may become resistant to transition and or change. So keeping things as much the same as possible will help with the acting out. Let's look at how trauma of war affects children at different stages of development. As I go through the list for each of the developmental levels, be thinking of your own students and feel free to give examples from your own classroom or your own experiences with your own kids. Slide 6. Effects of trauma on preschool children. Being exposed to trauma overwhelms the preschool's child capacity to regulate emotions. They cannot control their emotional reactions. So we have to help them learn to regain control and maintain that control. Young children do not always have the words to tell you what has happened to them or how they feel. Behavior is a better gauge, and sudden changes in behavior can be a sign of trauma exposure. You may see more separation anxiety in the preschool children, having difficulty separating from mother when she brings the child to school. Or they may be more clingy with you, the teacher, or their primary caregivers. They're needing that physical contact, that grounding when they touch you, when they hug you, when you hold them. It gives them a sense of security and safety. You may see regression in previously mastered stages of development. For instance, the child may start doing baby talk when they have developed to the point where they don't do baby talk anymore, but they may regress into that pre-vocalization. Or they may start wetting the bed when they have not been doing that for months. Or they may have toileting accidents in the classroom, whereas they didn't in the past. You may also see lack of developmental progress, not developing or not progressing at the same level as their peers. They may be stunted, kind of stuck in that stage where they experience the trauma. You may see them recreating the traumatic event, repeatedly talking about it, playing out the event, or drawing the event. Let this happen. Actually encourage it. When they start to talk about or act out or draw their perception of what happened to them in the trauma, that's their way of working through it and letting go of it. So actually encourage them to express themselves in any way. You may see difficulty at nap time or bedtime. They may be resistant to going to sleep. It's scary to go to sleep because you lose control. It's scary to go to sleep because the bombs may come. There may be a lot of waking up during the night or nightmares. Again, you may see increased somatic complaints, headaches, stomach aches, maybe overreacting to minor bumps and bruises on the playground if they're running and they fall down and they skin their knee. Maybe they used to just jump up and brush it off and keep running, but this time they may overreact and act as if they've broken their leg. Changes in behavior of any kind, whether doing more of something or doing less of something, can be a sign of trauma. Maybe eating more or eating less, so their appetites may have changed. You may see unexplained absences from the kiddos, from the students. They may be sleeping more or sleeping less. You may see angry outbursts, decreased attention, withdrawal. So they may act out and be acting out their feelings, their trauma, or they may be holding it in and withdrawing. Either way, they're needing your support. They may over or underreact to physical contact, bright lights, sudden movements, loud sounds, bells, slamming doors, or sirens. They may show increased distress, unusually whiny, irritable, moody, or sullenness. Worrying about safety of themselves or others, they may display anxiety, fear, and worry. They may develop new fears, fear of the dark, fear of animals, fear of monsters. You may hear a lot of statements about and questions about death and dying. The children may, for the first time, realize that death is a reality. Slide 7. Signs of trauma specific to middle school and high school students. You may see more irritability with friends, teachers, or events. See more arguments and fusses. Events that they normally would enjoy, they may gripe about. Oh, we have to do that again. So just more irritability in general. They may express discomfort with feelings, their own feelings. They may have thoughts of troubling thoughts of revenge, and they don't know how to deal with those feelings. That you may hear repeated discussion of the events, and they may be focusing on specific details of what happened. Part of the trauma may stick in their brain, and they see that and they hear those sounds over and over, seeing images in vivid detail. They may demonstrate increased impulsivity, more risk-taking. This is normal. Risk-taking is normal for adolescents, but you may see an increase in that, an increase in the severity or the danger of the risk-taking behavior. This increase in impulsivity and risk-taking behavior is a distraction from feelings, or it raises the mood from depression with an adrenaline rush. So they may be trying to cope with the trauma by recreating some dangerous situations that are not really life-threatening, but they could be. Difficulty in trusting others is something that may negatively impact the students. Their perceptions of others may be changed, not trusting others, being worried about not feeling as close to others. There may be repetitive thoughts and comments about death and dying. Also, there may be some suicidal thoughts. Whatever technique to get it out of their brain and into the air by talking, writing about it, or art projects, or they may talk about violent or morbid topics. They may be searching the internet for topics on death and dying or suicide techniques. Be vigilant for this. They may have a heightened difficulty with authority, redirection, or criticism that they would normally be compliant about. They may resist and overreact. We could see them re-experiencing the trauma with nightmares or disturbing memories during the day. Jumpiness, being edgy, hyperarousal is seen in sleeping disturbance or a tendency to be easily startled. Slide 8. Adolescent recovery will be very variable. Some adolescents, if given support, will recover within a few weeks or months from the fear and anxiety caused by a traumatic experience. However, some adolescents need more help over a longer period of time in order to heal, and may need continuing support from family, teachers, or mental health professionals. Anniversaries of the event or media reports may act as reminders to the adolescent, causing a recurrence of symptoms, feelings, and behaviors in students that you think have totally recovered. Slide 9, developmental and cultural factors. Generally, traumatic events evoke feelings of extreme fear and helplessness. Reactions to traumatic events, excuse me, are determined by the subjective experience of the child, which could be impacted by developmental and cultural factors. One event may severely traumatize a particular child, while that event may not really bother another child. So it's very subjective. Some traumatic experiences occur once in a lifetime, others are ongoing. Many children have experienced multiple traumas, and for the children of Ukraine, trauma is a chronic part of their lives. Be aware of both the children who act out and the quiet children who don't appear to have behavioral problems. These students often fly beneath the radar and do not get help. They may have symptoms of avoidance and depression that are just as serious as those of the acting out student. Try your best to take the child's traumatic experiences into consideration when dealing with acting out behaviors. Some children show signs of stress in the first few weeks after a trauma, but then they return to their usual state of physical and emotional health. Even children who do not exhibit serious symptoms may experience some degree of emotional distress, which may continue or even deepen over a long period of time. Children who have experienced traumatic events may experience problems that impair their day-to-day functioning. They may have behavioral problems, or their suffering may not be apparent at all. Be alert to the possibility of misinterpreting their behavior due to the many presentations of trauma-related anxiety. For instance, many behaviors seen in children who have experienced trauma are nearly identical to those of children with developmental delays, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and other mental health conditions. Let's look at suggestions for educators and parents. Try to increase the level of support and encouragement given to the traumatized child. Perhaps designate an adult who can provide additional support if needed. For instance, if you have a counselor in the school, if a child is acting out or being very emotional in the class, perhaps that counselor or an administrator can come and comfort and encourage the child if it's just too much for you to handle in the classroom. Set clear, firm limits for inappropriate behavior and develop logical rather than punitive consequences. When I say try to be aware of the reason behind the acting out behavior, that does not mean to bend the rules or let them get away with inappropriate behavior. Firm boundaries, clear limits are a safety net for the kids. They know what's expected of them. If they know what's expected of them and they break those rules, then they also know what the consequences are. There's a difference between punitive consequences and logical consequences. Logical consequences give the student the opportunity to learn to manage his or her own behavior, and they tie the consequences to the behavior. Recognize that behavioral problems may be transient and due to trauma-related anxiety. Provide a safe place for the child to talk about what has happened and what is happening on a daily basis. It's important for the children to be heard. Provide time and space for children to express themselves through art, play, and storytelling. Give simple and realistic answers to the child's questions about traumatic events. Clarify distortions or misconceptions. Attachments and relationships are fundamental to helping children navigate frightening events. Many have been uprooted and have lost relationships, lost friends. They need the opportunity to reconnect with new friends, new teachers, and be encouraged to interact with their peers. Not all children have religious beliefs, but be attentive if the child experiences severe feelings of anger, guilt, shame, or punishment attributed to a higher power. Do not engage in theological discussions, but rather refer the child to appropriate support. Slide 11, more suggestions for educators and parents. Maintain usual routines and predictability. A return to normalcy, whatever that means, or as near normal as possible, will communicate the message that the child is safe and life will go on. If nothing other than the sequence of classes at school remain the same, or the same meal times and the same bedtime routines at home, sameness and predictability can reduce stress. Routine is comforting to not only our children, but ourselves. Another idea is to give the children something to look forward to, even if it's just a treat after working on lessons or an outing on the weekend. Give children choices. Often traumatic events involve loss of control and or chaos. So you can help children feel safe by providing them with some choices or control when appropriate. For instance, at home, do you want to brush your teeth before the story we read at bedtime, or would you like to brush your teeth afterwards? Or even perhaps choosing between two outfits to wear to school. Just some little bit of choice helps them feel more in control. Set aside a designated time and place for sharing to help the child know it's okay to talk about what happened. Again, it's important for children to be heard. If a student blurts out in class and it's not an appropriate time to give voice to his or her concerns, be sure to validate the child's concerns and say, I can see you're really upset about that. But then you give the child a time and a place to talk and ask questions later. I can see you're really upset about that. Let's talk about that when we're through with our reading lesson. Be sensitive to the cues in the environment that may cause a reaction in the traumatized child. For example, victims of bombings might react very badly to threatening weather or thunderstorms. Children may increase problem behaviors near an anniversary of a traumatic event. If you can anticipate difficult times or transitions, work to try to provide additional support in that event that's coming up. Many kinds of situations may be reminders. If you're able to identify reminders, you can help by preparing the child for the situation. For instance, for the child who doesn't like being alone, provide a partner to accompany them to the restroom. Warn children if you will be doing something out of the ordinary, such as turning off the lights or making a sudden loud noise. You might tell them, I'm about to turn off the lights. And then as you're doing it, I'm turning out the lights now. Or you're going to hear a loud bang. Be prepared, the bang is coming. There's the loud bang. Be aware of other children's reactions to the traumatized child and to the information they share. Protect the traumatized child from peers' curiosity and protect classmates from the details of a child's trauma. We don't want to cause secondary trauma to the other children as they listen to the gory details of what this child has been through. Understand that children cope by reenacting trauma through play or through their interactions with others. Resist their efforts to draw you into a negative repetition of the trauma. For instance, some children will provoke teachers in order to replay abusive situations. Slide 12. Academic accommodations and modifications. You might consider shortening assignments because attention span is shorter, covering the same material, but just a little bit shorter. You might consider allowing additional time to complete assignments because, again, their concentration is more spotty and they may get distracted and then come back to the assignment. So they may need extra time on assignments. Give permission to leave class to go to a predetermined designated adult, such as a counselor or school nurse or administrator, if the feelings become overwhelming. You might want to make a contract with that student if they have a history of acting out when they get overwhelmed. If they know that there is a spot that they can go to or a person they can talk with and get themselves under control, then you don't have to provide the control. And that's reassuring to the student that they can control their behavior, and then they're free to re-enter the classroom. You might consider providing additional support for organizing and remembering assignments. For instance, an assignment notebook that you check off before leaving class to be sure they've written the assignment that is due the next day. Or provide a quiet corner in the classroom for students to regain their own composure. In that corner, there may be drawing materials, a squeeze ball, or a weighted blanket to help them control their emotions, to help them express them and then manage them and get them under control. The next slide will be on referrals. When reactions are severe, such as intense hopelessness or fear or suicidal ideation, or go on for a long period of time, more than 1 month, and interfere with the child's functioning, give referrals for additional help. As severity can be difficult to determine, with some children becoming avoidant or appearing to be fine, such as a child who performs well academically no matter what, don't feel you have to be certain before making a referral. Let a mental health professional evaluate the likelihood that the child could benefit from some type of intervention. It's better to make a referral and the mental health professional says, I think she's going to be fine. It's better to do that than to overlook a child who needs extra help. Slide 14 is taking care of yourself. You are a key component to helping the children recover. Seek support routinely for yourself in order to prevent compassion fatigue, also referred to as secondary traumatic stress. When you deal with children or adults who repeatedly need your support, you give of yourself over and over and over, and you get exhausted. Your compassion wears out or lessens. And sometimes we can be traumatized by what we're hearing. Be aware that you can develop compassion fatigue from exposure to trauma through the children with whom you work. You must take care of yourself before you can effectively take care of the children. Call upon other adults to help you. Ukrainians are wonderful about helping each other, especially extended family members or neighbors who are willing to assume communal responsibilities for caring for the children. Parents need opportunities to take breaks from their kids to focus on their own mental health, to take a walk, to receive support from other adults, or to express your own emotions. This is a natural cultural strength, as adults can provide much needed parenting breaks. Slide 15. They need you. Ukrainian children are precious. Ukrainian children are a natural resource. Ukrainian children are Ukraine's future. They need you. They need you to see their trauma. They need you to listen to them. They need you to support them through their trauma. They need you to take care of yourself so that you can take care of them. Thank you.
Дарлін, дуже дякую за таку чудову презентацію. Шановні учасники, у нас зараз є час для запитань, тому якщо у вас є якісь запитання стосовно презентації, або ви хотіли б поділитися досвідом, або просто сказати декілька слів вдячності для нашої спікерки, будь ласка, можете вмикати мікрофончик. Якщо ви хочете говорити англійською, не забудьте перемкнутися на англійський канал. Якщо це буде просто повідомлення в чаті, то ми також будемо раді його зачитати.
Підкажіть, а українською можна? Буде переклад?
Звичайно, так, звичайно.
Ну, добрий вечір, наш вечір. Мене звати Мирослава, мені було дуже приємно. Я скажу, що я багато чого дізналася цікавого. Є те, що ми, скажімо так, на своїх шишках навчилися тут в Україні. Я працюю вчителем початкових класів в 2 класі. У мене зовсім маленькі діти. І ми вчимось офлайн, тобто ми ходимо в школу, і під час всіх тривог ми сидимо в укритті. І буває таке, що діткам, не дивлячись на те, що дуже тяжко це робити, навіть просто висидіти 1 годину, але настільки вони єдні, настільки вони цілісні, і коли відбій повітряної тривоги, вони виходять, вони співають. Можливо, ви чули українську пісню там «Ой, лузі», «Червона калина». І як би там не було тяжко і нам, і нашим діткам, але настільки вони зараз патріотичні стали, і я, як вчитель, їх це не виховувала робити, вони це самі. І хотіла просто поділитися, що в мене звичайна українська школа, не частного типу, але коли я заміняла музику в діточок своїх, то вони попросили включити їм гімн України. І вони всі стали і почали співати. А я навіть зараз згадую це, і в мене сльози на очах. Наскільки ж ця ситуація, війна, вона зробила наших дітей сильними і єдними. І хочу вам сказати величезну дякую від всіх вчителів, наскільки взагалі ми всі сильні. Зараз сидимо тут, вчимося, не дивлячись ні на що. Дякую вам всім.
Thank you for that example of how music can be very healing. And thank you for being flexible with the kids, the children, when they told you what they needed. They wanted to sing those songs, and you replied in a healing, supportive way. You were able to give them what they needed. That's wonderful.
Дуже вам дякую за такий коментар. Дякую, що поділилися своїм досвідом. Шановні колеги, можливо, хтось ще хоче поділитися досвідом або просто сказати декілька слів. Можна українською, звичайно. Так, у нас є дуже багато слів вдячності в чаті. Всі їх не буду зачитувати, але якщо так загалом, то це подяка за важливу інформацію, слова підтримки, так, організацію, так, і змістовну зустріч. Щиро дякую вам за те, що сьогодні виділили час і змогли приєднатися і поділитися своїм досвідом. Я нагадую, що це наш 5-й вебінар, і ще залишається в нас 5 зустрічей. Вони будуть не менш цікавими і корисними, і я сподіваюся, що ви також знайдете щось для себе на кожній з цих зустрічей. Якщо ви приєдналися лише нещодавно, то ви можете передивитися попередні зустрічі за посиланням, яке приходить вам як нагадування. Там є всі лінки, так, і є всі записи. Так, окей. Чи є, можливо, ще якісь коментарі? Ага. Є запитання в чаті. Ага, і є у нас ручка від пані Софії. Давайте спочатку ручку, пані Софії, а потім прочитаємо запитання.
Доброго дня усім. Дякую за змістовну таку зустріч. І одне питання, на яке я звернула увагу, от пані презентаторка казала нам, що не дайте себе як вчителі втягнути в якісь такі активності, які діти переживають наново травму, так? Якийсь травматичний досвід, і от вони повторюють, можливо, цю подію. От що саме, чи можна на цьому трошечки, як би сказати англійською, elaborate on this question? Тобто, чи...
Yes, Sophia, I'm glad you asked that.
Yeah.
I did not mean to get, I need to clarify. I did not mean for you to not get involved with them.
Mm-hmm.
What I was referring to was sometimes the children will try to provoke you mm-hmm. into an angry exchange. Mm-hmm. And if you can, rather than doing what they want you to do by being angry back at them and be abusive toward them, which you wouldn't do anyway, but mm-hmm. they're trying to create conflict. If you can resist that natural urge to be angry mm-hmm. back at them, if you can stop for a minute, take a deep breath, and then just respond in a calm, even, firm voice. That mm-hmm. way you don't recreate the trauma of conflict. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm so glad you asked for that clarification.
Thank you.
Так, дякую за коментар, дякую за запитання. Так, секундочку, я зараз знайду запитання. Скажіть, будь ласка, яким чином підтримати дитину-підлітка, яка втратила мотивацію до навчання?
First of all, I would try to validate their feelings, get them to maybe talk about why they're not interested in learning, They may feel like there is no future. There is no society to be contributing to after all this. Let them talk about their fears, their lack of hopefulness, or their hopelessness, and let them talk about those feelings and validate those feelings. By that, I mean, I can see how you'd feel that way. I know this is really hard. Let's look beyond right now. What do you see? Right now, it seems hopeless. Is there anything that you would want to do in the future? What would you like to do differently? How would you like to be living in, say, 5 years? After the war is over, 2 years, whatever, but beyond the war, what kind of life would you like to have? And kind of fantasize about that with them so that it creates a fantasy, a hope in their brain that something better could come. And then really validate that. Okay, what are you going to need to do to get there? I know that math is not interesting right now, and it doesn't seem to apply to your life right now, but it will in the future. And you will need your high school diploma to get that job, to get you to this other town, or to get you to wherever they're wanting to go in their life. So it's a long process of validating their feelings and their hopelessness and accepting those, and then planting a seed of hope for the future, and then making that bridge between their future dreams and school. And it may not take hold right then in that session, but you've given them something to think about, and just kind of back off and let them alone. And then maybe in a few days or a week, revisit with them. How are you feeling today about math? Or how are you feeling about your future today? So just come back gently.
Дуже вам дякую за коментар. У нас є ручка від пані Олі.
Вітаю, шановні колеги. Дякую за дуже цікаву змістовну зустріч. У мене питання, частково вже торкнулись, можливо, у відповідях інших, але шановна пані спікерка говорила про те, що не варто так теж повертати дітей якимись там ситуаціями до тих якихось тригерів, що можуть зайвий раз повернути їх до тих емоцій тяжких пережитих, але з іншого боку, що робити з природнім інтересом віковим дітей до таких феноменів, як життя, смерть, ставлення, коли вони питають про ставлення педагога до смерті конкретної людини, до каліцтва, до всього іншого. Це вже навіть не тригери, це конкретні назви чи речі, де ти не можеш їх пояснювати чи коментувати, не занурюючи усіх учасників, чи вже і зараз. Як з цим? Чи уникати, чи наскільки спокійно може педагог пояснювати такі моменти? Мені цікаво, що з цього приводу думає, шановні колеги. Дякую.
Olga, that is a wonderful question. Yes, answer any questions that the child brings up. Talk about anything they need to talk about. These children are learning life from us. They are learning how to live life. And part of life is death. And part of life is injury. And unfortunately, part of their life and your life is war right now. So your reactions to death and illness and injury will help them. It will give them an example of how to deal with these traumas. So yes, interact with them, be honest with them about your feelings, so that they can be honest with you about theirs. So you're helping them to learn how to live as you help them to learn how to deal with death.
Дуже дякую. І маємо ще два запитання в чаті. Перше, яку допомогу можна надати дитині, чий батько є безпосередньо в зоні бойових дій?
That's a hard one. Depending on the age of the child, letting the child talk about his dad, tell stories about things that the child has done with his father, talk about things that they want to do with him when the father comes home. If the child cries, let the child cry and hold him or her. Whatever feelings the child has, validate those feelings and let the child know that you are there to listen at any time.
Дуже дякую за коментар. І останнє запитання. Як допомогти дітям дошкільного і молодшого шкільного віку подолати нічні жахіття? І такий коментар ще від учасників. Пропонують використовувати казки. Да? Тобто, що ви скажете з цього приводу?
First of all, I keep saying this, validate, 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 but let them know that it's okay to be afraid and that those are thoughts in your head. They're not real, but they are scary. And then perhaps you let them tell you the story of the nightmare and then make up a story together of the monster is overcome by the white knight with shining armor, and or if they have a favorite teddy bear, the teddy bear comes to your rescue and punches the monster in the face, and the monster goes flying down the mountain. Just be creative and let the child interact with you, and then your teddy bear runs to the monster and punches the monster, and what happens to the monster next? And the child chimes in, well, he just splatters all over the place. Let the child create with you a happy ending and a safe ending to that nightmare. And one of the things you can say, and I know children oftentimes are hesitant to go back to sleep or to have the light turned off, or for you to go back to your bed. Again, I understand how scary that might be, but you know what? If it does come back, you've got a solution. You've got a story. You can recreate in your head a story that makes the nightmare go away. So if you need me when you wake up, I'll be here, I'll come in, but you may not need me. You may be able to tell yourself the story that you and I just created. That gives you power and control over that nightmare. So we want to enable that, we want to comfort them, let them know that we're there for them, but they don't have to have us. They have some power and control over their feelings by how they think about those feelings. This has been wonderful. I have really, really enjoyed you guys. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of your life.
Дякую вам, Дарлін, за те, що виділили час і поділилися своїм досвідом, своїми знаннями. Шановні учасники, дякую всім, що приєдналися сьогодні. Нагадую, що в чаті є посилання на сайт, на якому ви можете знайти всю інформацію, записи, також матеріали, презентації. І оновлений розклад наступного вебінару також буде публікуватися на цьому сайті. Якщо раптом ви не отримали нагадування, то зможете користуватися цим посиланням. Дякую всім, що приєдналися, і побачимося наступного вівторка.
Дуже дякуємо, до побачення.
Дуже